Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 124.
I'm Cameron. This is Julie. This week's Torah portion. It's amazing. We're already in Genesis 41, moving to 44:17. It's amazing to think that we're almost at the end of Genesis.
I know.
But when you
Goes
realize
quickly.
Yes, but when you realize it's the week of Hanukkah, you know this is where we're supposed to be. Because that's this week and next week. We're always talking about that in the weeks of Hanukkah, or in the week and a little bit of Hanukkah.
Right.
I thought we'd start this week with kind of a quick reminder. That's a better way to say it. A reminder about kind of what Julie and I do when we talk about the Torah portion. That there are these 4 layers, okay? And there are multiple facets of these 4 layers.
Right.
So when we talk about maybe a specific point, it doesn't mean that that point is the end all.
Right.
It doesn't mean that, well, I heard so-and-so say that one's wrong and one's right. They're both right. So we have the first of the 4. We have the first, which is the Peshat, which means the literal. You know, Joseph was a real person who was thrown into a pit, who was taken out. Yeah, a real pit. Okay, so all these things really happen. Okay. Then you have the second one, which is the Remez, which is the hint. We deal with a lot of the hints. And then the next one is the Darash, which is the lessons. Okay, this is the one that I see has all these facets. Here's an example. When we talk about Joseph, we can say, you'll hear some say, well, he was kind of a snotty kid that needed to be sent off to learn a lesson so he could be molded into this person. Okay.
Maybe.
That's a great lesson that we can take.
Yeah.
Now, does
Don't
it mean
be a
that
snotty kid? You
Exactly.
might get sold to Egypt.
Exactly. Does that mean that he's really like that and fulfill the pattern of Messiah? Nope. Because Messiah, I feel quite confident to say he wasn't a snotty kid, okay? But that's still a valid lesson that we can learn from.
Yes.
So there are all these different lessons that have been picked out throughout the years that are still very valid and we don't want to let go of. But
Right.
that doesn't make that the literal.
Right.
So that's where we move in between all those. And then the last one is the Sod, which means the mystical, the hidden. And those are where you end up with the word finds. There's just all these different ways that you can move between these 4, mix the 4, and then you have facets of the 4.
Right.
Where,
right.
I think the sages say there's 70 facets, right? And remember,
That's what they say.
Messiah is going to be the one that's explaining all of these things,
Right,
which I
right.
love because we actually don't have any of this week's story and into next week making sense until Joseph explains it to his brothers.
That's true.
So he's going to take time to explain what really happened, what they think happened versus what really happened.
Right.
And Messiah
right.
is going to do the same thing with his brothers and with those of us who've come into the family. So it's just a way we wanted to look at that. Wanted to put that back out there for you guys to not forget that if we make a comment, that doesn't mean that's the only way it has to be seen.
Right. Right.
And with that reminder, I want to quickly revisit the aspect about who sold Joseph.
Okay.
Okay, it is a midrash. It is from Rashbam, and Rabbi Foreman discusses it as well in last week's Torah portion.
Okay.
About who really sold Joseph.
Right.
And we said that in following the way the pronouns work and some of the patterns, that, wow, look, it's the Midians who sold it to the Ishmaelites who sold it. We've got a whole bunch of selling going on. But that the brothers possibly never really sold them.
Actually, physically did.
Right, actually money exchange. Now in Amos 2:4, it brings up that Israel, and it's saying Israel who sold their people for silver and their poor for a pair of shoes. That scripture is often linked with, oh, look, they sold Joseph. For the silver, which someone sold him for the silver for sure, okay?
Yeah, right.
But Messiah, there's the righteous one who sold for silver, and we know that. Right. So, again, not dismissing that as not going with Joseph, just throwing it out there as more things to think about. Now, would we say, or probably anybody else say, that Joseph wasn't sold by the brothers? Absolutely not. We would absolutely say they were, but not in the way in which we think they said, cash it here. Okay?
Right.
Here's, one thing. We have Joseph himself who says in 41 that I was stolen from the Hebrews.
Right.
He says he's stolen. Then when he addresses his brothers later on in 44, he does say, you sold me. Yes.
Well, isn't that like Yeshua?
Yes.
So many times when Yeshua was speaking to the Pharisees or teaching, he would say, he would tell them what's in their heart. Even though they didn't actually go through with it or do it,
Right.
he would tell them what's in their heart. And we know that they wanted to sell him.
Right.
The heart issue.
So what is the point in which we have the sold comparison with Joseph? What's the comparison we have with Yeshua? I was going to say the piercing, but that's good too.
Yeah, because I have that in my notes too. It's in Zechariah.
Yeah, Zechariah 10.
Where it says, "You will look upon me, the one."
Or Zechariah 12:10.
12:10.
Yeah.
You'll look upon the one in whom you pierced. Well, the Romans actually did it.
Right.
But Israel gave the environment for it to happen.
Right. And like she said, in their heart, it was to get rid of him.
Right.
But we have this really interesting thing this week. In 42:21-23, this is where the sons have been, or the brothers have been put into the pit, right?
Okay.
Just like they did to their brother, right? Their brother, you know. All right, so, but let's look at what Reuben says in 22. He says, "And Reuben answered them, saying, Did I not speak to you, saying, Do not sin against the boy? And you would not listen? And see, his blood is now required of us." Okay. It's kind of that, look what y'all did. I'm responsible too. But he's concerned about the blood. Now, if you go back to 37, where he first brings it up, his concern is the blood. Let's not shed blood of our brother, which is 37:22.
Oh, it's almost like they now believe the story that Jacob told them.
Yes, exactly. Because they don't really know what happened to him.
Right, but
whether they sold him, like they ching got money, or they didn't, it doesn't change this part.
yeah.
They don't know what's become of their brother.
Right.
It's now their blood is upon them.
Yeah.
Don't we have in Matthew 27
Yes.
where they're like, his blood can be upon us and upon the children?
Right, yes.
Because
You have
the
no
thought
idea what you're saying.
The thought is he's going to be dead.
Right,
But in truth, he's not. He's going to be raised again, right?
right.
He's not really dead. So we see that thinking the blood's gone. It's not. There is hope. But when Judah is addressed with this at the end of this week's, the beginning of next week's, his response is, it's all me. I will take this. It becomes that no more you did it and I'm involved. Now this is all me.
All my responsibility.
Yes, all my responsibility. Which, you know, is how Israel will eventually become, right?
Right,
Will eventually take that. Messiah did. And again, we see things that Messiah does, that Israel does. There's that Sod, there's that Remez that we're talking about, those hints, right?
Right.
So the other thing, I'm kind of going back and forth because I want you to see where there's a responsibility issue, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then let's go back to the selling part for just a minute. So here's the interesting thing about the responsibility of the selling. You see the word used over and over through Judges.
Okay.
The Lord is selling Israel. He never sold Israel.
Yeah.
But he put them in a position that they would now go through a trial.
That would bring them to
back.
repentance.
Right, that would bring them back.
Right.
Well,
Right.
Isn't this kind of what's happening with Joseph?
Yes.
Not necessarily to bring them to repentance, but to put them in a place. How about this? So that Judah and the brothers, whose heart was to kill them, will now be brought into a place to where he can be repentant.
Right. Just like Yeshua.
Exactly.
Yeshua, they sold him. Rome actually did it.
Mm-hmm.
But they sold
put him in that position.
They put him in that position. Rome actually sold him to, the world. That's
Right,
why we've taken him and done whatever we want with him. So Rome actually sold him to the world. But it's that, they'll look upon the one that they pierced. That's why it's important for this pattern.
Right, absolutely. Because the truth is, either way, both stories, we're all
Guilty.
indicted. We
Right.
all end up being responsible for the sell, the giving away, and the blood
Of Yeshua.
of Yeshua, just like Joseph.
Right.
So that's where maybe, again, I wouldn't argue on the literal part. But when you start going those steps further, you can't see the shadows and the hints unless you're willing to let the words show you your depth. Let the words be your depth perception, because that's what happens when we start to see who's selling.
Now I understand why it's so important that the Ishmaelites, the Midianites, and the Hebrews
Yes.
were all involved because that's all descendants of Noah. Those are the three
that's
sons
good.
of Noah. You've got Keturah with the Midianites. You've got Ishmael, who's part of. Okay, so
the
Keturah,
Egyptians. Yeah, with the Egyptians, that's Ham.
but Keturah, and Keturah is Japheth.
Uh-huh.
And the Egyptians would be Ham,
Right.
And then the Hebrews would be Seth,
Right.
And that would be the
That's
whole
really
world.
good.
So that means
yeah.
we're all guilty. We're all responsible.
Yeah.
That puts them all responsible.
Yeah, I love it. That's
and I
really
love
good.
it because, like you said, the Hebrews didn't actually put Yeshua to death. It was Rome,
right?
But they made the environment good for it.
And the Lord made the environment because remember, He took the scepter so they couldn't do it on their own.
Right.
So, all right, so fine. Let's look at this. We have also the word sent, where Joseph talks about himself being sent. Let's go back to 37. His father sent him where?
Right.
To the dangerous place Shechem to be with the
Yes.
brothers who already we know there's a problem.
Right.
So Dad sent him to a place that he was going to be sold.
Yeah.
Well, here we have where Joseph's like, it's not y'all. The Father is the one who sent me ahead of you.
Right.
So
Hello,
right there,
Yeshua.
exactly. He sent him to be
Yes.
sold
Yes.
so that redemption can come.
So in
Just
order
like
for
here.
redemption to come, I would say that Yeshua had to be sold to the Gentiles and made into this weird-looking Egyptian pharaoh
absolutely
like thing
Deal.
in order to save the whole world.
Right.
But what I love about it is that's what I got out of this lesson. Joseph didn't fight it and go, "No, I'm a Hebrew. You can't do this to me." He just never compromised.
Yeah.
But everything he did was to save Israel.
Yeah.
His brothers.
Right. He still
and
had
in the meantime, he saved the rest of the world.
Well, isn't that the way that works? Yeah. Oh, love it.
Whoa.
So along those same lines, if we go and look at 42, 1 and 2, it says, and then Jacob saw, and there was grain in Egypt. Jacob said to his sons, why do you look at each other? Verse 2, and he said, see, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down to the place and buy for us there, and let us live and not die. Mm-hmm. This thing has so much meaning. So, first of all, let's look real quick at the fact that we've got this weird see, right? He saw.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
You know, and that's the actual word, the literal word saw, like, oh, I see it over there. Okay. Obviously, we know he didn't see it. It can also be the word for had a vision, a premonition, those things. It can also be that same meaning. Now, here's what's interesting. The word grain, a lot of Bibles say grain, some say corn. The word there can be corn, but if you go to the root, it means to crush. It means to break and to scatter.
Okay.
So, now in the Hebrew, the sages say the spelling, like there's a pronunciation. I guess like you'd say tomato, okay? There's a pronunciation.
Potato.
Yeah, exactly. There's a pronunciation difference. And if you change the pronunciation of this word, it can mean hope.
Oh, okay.
So let's read it in two different ways. One,
Okay.
he saw, okay,
That there was hope.
he saw there was hope in Egypt.
Okay.
Two, he saw that there was a crushing in Egypt.
Okay.
Both are true. The gematria for going down in verse 2 is 210.
Okay.
Significant because it is believed that they are only prisoners, they're only in Egypt for 210 years.
Oh, okay.
Isn't it interesting
When
that
they
the
go down
gematria of go down is 210?
Yes. Oh, wow.
I mean, you got to be like, awesome. One of the things that I saw in these verses that I just loved was here you have Jacob in the flesh, right? Because it's not Israel.
Because it's Jacob.
And he is seeing, but he doesn't fully understand. Like, he's not like, my son is alive.
Right.
But he's like, I know there's hope. There's something's going to happen.
You mean when he says go down to Egypt?
Well, when he says, I see that there's grain in the land.
Yes.
There's something. Okay.
Yes.
So, but I love this because here's
I
Jacob.
perceive.
Yes, he's perceiving that there's something, there's hope there. We can't quite see what it is.
Right.
Isn't that Israel,
Right now?
physical Israel today, blinded? I know there's hope because they're coming Messiah. They
Right.
have hope in the Messiah.
Right.
But they just can't quite see a clear picture yet.
Right.
And remember, when they return to their father, the brothers or the sons, return to their father next week, and they tell him, look, it's Jacob. Joseph is alive. First, he doesn't accept it, but when he accepts it, Israel says the spirit of it is alive.
Yep.
Because his
only
hope,
by the spirit can they see it.
Right, and his hope has become sure. Actually, that's what hope means. Hope isn't something like a hope. It's already happened. As far as I'm concerned, it's already happened.
Right.
I know it will happen. Mm-hmm. So anyway, here's this. I know it's happening. I know there's something important there. Not sure what it is.
Right.
To next week where I knew it. Right. That's what Israel will do when Messiah reveals himself to his brothers.
Right.
They will grab hold and be like, I knew it. I knew there was something about that guy.
Yeah.
Knew it. As I think about that with Israel getting the hope and understanding it goes back to that remembering. The disciples, they knew things, but they didn't really know it until
they got the Holy Spirit.
Right, the Holy Spirit. And then, now they saw it. All right. And now they start thinking about the remembering. We have the helper, the cupbearer, who didn't remember until, now I remember the dream, right? Mm-hmm. And then even with the brothers, I think that when the money in the sack and all the things that were happening to the brothers, those are all reminders. The pit, which remember they did remember in the pit. Yeah. And then the little things of money that they didn't put in there that, these are all things giving the Holy Spirit ammunition to recall what had happened so they can now perceive it properly, right? So I love how those little hints and reminders are put in there for the brothers to understand it. And of course, that's from the brothers' perspective and Joseph, not Joseph, the dad's perspective. Right. There's so much else going on.
I know. A lot of what I saw was actually from Joseph and Pharaoh's perspective. Oh, okay. I spent most of my time in 41.
Okay.
All right. So, okay. First of all, in 41:1, it says, and it came to be at the end of 2 years' time that Pharaoh had a dream and saw him standing by the river. So, 2 years' time, from what? From the time that he interpreted the dream of the cupbearer.
Right, made the deal with him.
Right. And so, first of all, I see Joseph's experience from, I think I said this maybe last week or the week before, from the time he was sold until the end, until he's reunited with his brothers, as a foreshadowing of the spiritual side of the Messiah's ecclesia from the time of his death, burial, and resurrection till the time they're reunited with Israel, with Judah,
right,
with the southern king, with the other brothers, I guess.
Yeah, because that's all of them in there.
Right. So here you have Joseph, right? He's sold. He is in Potiphar's house, but Potiphar's house is blossoming. Right. Everything's going good. And it wasn't until he had the encounter with the wife and said no that there was a split between Joseph and the rest of Potiphar's house. Right? So that's what happened to the church, for lack of a better word, at the time of Constantine, when they had to decide, are we going to take on and have adultery with this other
Are we going to assimilate? Hello, Hanukkah.
Yes. Are we going to assimilate and do what she wants? Right. Or are we going to say no? When he said no, she, the adulterous woman, was elevated into the house and everyone believed her.
Right.
And Joseph, the truth, was suppressed and put into the basement. Yeah. Isn't that what's happened? But now here we have, at the end of 2 years, we have Joseph being summoned up. Joseph being the truth.
Right.
So we know from Psalms 119, the truth is Torah.
Right.
All of a sudden, we have the truth that's been stuck in the basement of the church, just kind of put in the background, yet it's flourishing for all who encounter it.
Right.
Right? Because we have the cupbearer and the and I love the thing about the cupbearer and the baker, because you can see that as the body that's the body of Messiah that's not doing the right thing, and the body of Messiah that is. So you have one who's got these white baskets on the top of their head, right? If Messiah is the head of the body, and this baker is putting those white baskets, like it looks good, looks righteous, above the head, and putting whatever he bakes, so man-made doctrine, in the basket, he's the one that's like, no good.
Right.
But the cupbearer,
in place of a crown.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's good. Yeah. So, but they're doing, above who Yeshua is. Right. They're like, nope, this is more important than
our
who Yeshua is. Yes. And what we've made it into is more important, because Pharaoh, the father, in this just in this
scenario.
analogy, is going to like my goods.
Yeah.
He's going to love it. But the Pharaoh puts him to death. He's like, no.
Yeah.
Then you have the cupbearer who only takes from the vine. But Yeshua says, I'm the vine, right?
Right.
So he takes those grapes, and he's called the cupbearer. And that really impressed on me because he bears all that. You know, grapes are the ones that are crushed and to get all of that out.
Yeshua's the one that takes the cup and drinks it.
Yes. And the baked goods, it puffed up.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about them. It's all about those baked goods, you know. But the cupbearer, it's all about, look what I got out of my crushing.
Yeah.
Look what I got.
Well, that goes with the grain.
Yes, the crushed. I heard
crushed.
there was the crushed one. Right. Yeah. All right. So then I see Joseph. This is the main thing I got out of it. So this would be the lesson that I kind of got this week that maybe we could all take from, is we have to remember what side of the fence we're on.
Right.
We come from Joseph's side of the fence. We're the ones that were oppressed, not us personally, but the truth has been oppressed.
Right.
We've taken hold of the truth, and now we're like that cupbearer going, I remember.
Right. Suddenly that memory's coming back.
I remember this encounter that I had with the Torah, the living Torah, right? 2,000 years ago, the church as a whole. I remember this encounter. And Pharaoh's like, well, bring him up. And the thing about it is Joseph, he didn't bring him up and send him home.
Right.
He brought him up and dressed him in Egyptian clothes so he could save everybody.
Right.
And that was where I went, So if the Torah is being brought up, is it being brought up so we can now just all move to Israel and just be with that? Or do they have their own story, Judah and Tamar, that they're living out?
Right. Yeah.
So we need to be very careful that we don't, again, just completely forsake and slash Potiphar's house.
Yeah, right.
You know,
right.
Potiphar's house is where we were able to flourish.
We were nourished.
We were able to flourish. But when the Father is going to bring us out and present us to save everybody, we may still look like Potiphar's house. You know, we may still,
but not on our inside actions, as we talked about last year.
Because Joseph never compromised.
Right.
That's why everyone looked to him and could trust him. Because he didn't. He was only led by the Spirit. Right. Something else that impressed me was, one of the things Joseph said was, okay, out of all the grain of the land, take 1/5.
Right.
So it made me think, okay, so is 1/5 of all the grain being preserved and being gathered in for a time because it's going to be sent back out to feed everybody?
Yeah.
During the 7 years of the tribulation.
Right.
So you would have 1/5 of the people that are in the assembly could be taking hold of and gathered in. I don't know. I just think of our experience.
To being able to be used.
We were taken out. Right. We were taken out.
Groomed.
And we were being groomed and groomed and groomed.
Right.
And now I just have this overwhelming feeling that the people who have been taken out and groomed are going to be sent back out for that final, like, okay, there's going to be 7 years of famine and horribleness.
Right.
But right now, we're still in that 7 years of plenty. And I think that's why people who are just coming into understanding Torah, they get it like that. Where the rest of it took years to understand. They're just getting it exponentially because it's during that 7 years of plenty.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So the word, the grain, is plenty right now.
Right.
You know? And it's being taken and preserved and molded and kept for the time of the famine when it's going to be sent back out to everyone to nourish them.
Yeah.
And feed them and give them what they need.
Yeah.
I don't know. Good stuff. It's just a thought.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
I love it.
Patterns.
Right. You got to realize these patterns are important.
Yeah. Because we don't want to miss what the Lord has in store for us. Because Joseph, I believe, was able to interpret all these dreams because he recognized all those patterns of what had already happened in his life.
Right, we can go there, but yeah.
Right, we did that last year. You can go watch the one from last year, and it talks about that. But so I think it's important for us to know the patterns so we can understand what our role is and our place in these last days, because we want to be part of that nourishing everyone and not just hermit and let's just keep to ourselves, because that's not what the grain was kept for.
Right.
It was kept so it could be sent back out.
Okay. So we thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great week.
Yes.
A little long because there's so much good stuff.
I know.
So I hope
it's important.
Yes, I hope you have lasted the whole time with us and you're able to take this, and it's a great springboard as you continue to study this week's Torah portion.
All right. Well, we will see you next week with episode 125.
Shalom!